If you're tuning in for the VOD, give me a couple minutes while I get set up on my end. Just gotta pull up the chat. All right. I think I'm just about ready to get started here. Almost. Okay, I think I'm just about good to go to get started on this. Why not? Now's as good a time as any. So I like to do these streams every now and then because when it comes to soldering, it's a continuous skill that you can always improve. But when it comes to like getting started soldering, there are two different types of people out there. There's the people who start off with a kit, something relatively low investment. You mess this up, you're out the $4 you paid, or I guess this one is $6. This one is $4, I believe. Or there are people who just dive right into the project that they need to work on that they decided to pick up soldering for. I almost never recommend doing the latter. Sure, soldering is relatively easy. I make it look easy because I've been doing it for years. But it's not... There's a lot of feel to soldering that you don't necessarily pick up the first time you're handling an iron. Oh, it's going to be one of those nights, isn't it? Okay. It just takes some practice, some getting used to. So I recommend, if it's your first time, or even if you feel you're not very good at soldering, spend a few dollars, grab a few kits, spend a few hours putting them together. Usually you'll get a pretty good feel for soldering by the time you get one of these sort of things put together. I don't necessarily recommend starting with one of these. These are more advanced type kits. What do I got here? Where's my drawer? There it is. So I did a stream last time with this kit. This is definitely something I would recommend more for a beginner. Feel free to check that stream out. It went pretty smoothly. And then even longer time ago, I did this thing here. Basically, I mean, they're different circuits, but it's the exact same thing as far as a kit goes. Just get something that looks cool, solder it together, and see how you like soldering, because otherwise you start putting together your $80, $100 Game Boy kit, realize you don't know what the heck you're doing, and you ruin both the kit and the Game Boy. It's never a good time. Yes, an MBC3 flash card is definitely a practice kit. No, I mean, it's not that expensive, but it's not a beginner's soldering project, I believe. Oh yes. I am probably not going to do this one tonight because there is a lot of soldering involved, and I don't want to be here all night soldering. So I think we're just going to do this one. and then I'll save this one for another stream or so. But I don't know. I hadn't actually opened these up and checked out the back until now. I think that's kind of neat. There isn't a circuit on these. You just have a ruler and then various helpful footprints, you know, to gauge the size of things, etc. I think it's kind of neat. But I have links to both of these kits in the description. I have a link to the other streams and videos that I've done on these things. And yeah, I honestly have no idea what these do. I'm pretty sure they just blink lights. I mean, it's not... The point of this kit is not that it does something cool. It's that you assemble it, you get experience soldering, and then you can see whether or not it works. Not that it does anything cool. That's not the point of the kit. The point of the kit is to put it together, not that it does something. Hang on, let me put up my cheat sheet here. Yeah, so this one is $4 on RGRS. The other one I just had was like $6. It looks like the other one does have more soldering, which is why I'm putting this one together first. Just because, I mean, I do like doing streams, otherwise I wouldn't be streaming. But I also don't want to stream for 6 hours straight. So what I'm going to need to do this, at very minimum, my soldering iron, which is not turned on at the moment and does not even have a tip in it. I probably won't, but just in case, I will have some solder wick handy. I definitely need some tweezers. I'm just using cheap AliExpress special tweezers. Mine have this super Mall Ninja-esque pattern on them, but they're identical to the tweezers linked in the description. If you click on the tools link and then scroll through, there's a multi-pack of tweezers, and this was a multi-pack. I only care for the angled ones. Also probably won't need it, but I have a solder sucker handy. And last but not least, some solder. I am using in particular this KSGER, I believe it's 6337. Yep, 6337. There is not a link to this solder that I use, but there is a link to Voultar's YouTube channel, and if you check his channel, he has a link to all the supplies he uses, exact same stuff. Oh, and one more thing. On the same note, I've also got a bottle of Flux. Same thing, check Voultar's channel. Alright, so let's talk tips now. I have 5 different tips for my soldering iron. This is the one that it came with, and I don't recommend using these conical tips ever. This is like the, I don't want to say it's the worst one, but it's the least useful, I think, because it's not good at anything. It's not bad at anything, but it's not good at anything either. My preference for tips goes in this order. I like this K-Series knife tip because you have a shitload of surface area when you need it, but it's also got a very fine point for when you need to do some surface mount stuff. Followed by this J-Series curved tip, because this allows you to really get in there with the curved surface. It gives you more surface area against the PCB. For doing surface mount components, like resistors and such, this is generally the better tip over a K-Series. But I like the K-Series because it has a massive amount of surface area. But I'm going to be using this one today because I think this is the best tip for this job. Alternatively, there are also the Chisel Tip tips. This one looks basically like a flathead screwdriver. This is also pretty good because it gives you, that same flat edge for surface area, but this doesn't really, unlike the K-Series tip, you don't really have a point if you need to get in there and do some fine work either. And then this is the, I forget specifically which one this is, but this tip is hollow, or it's like kind of concave, so you can load it up with solder. This is good for soldering like surface mount chips if you're doing is it wave soldering? I don't know. I'm forgetting the specific term, but basically you just load it up with a bunch of solder and then hit all the legs. This is good for that. I used to use this one all the time because it was basically like a K series light, in that it gave me plenty of surface area when I needed, but also had a somewhat fine point. Drag soldering, thank you, HDR. Yeah, that's what I meant. I knew it wasn't wave soldering, but that was all I could think of. I'm gonna keep that on my desk. Okay. And I'm just gonna put those tips away before I get sidetracked. All right, go ahead and turn that on. I'm going to set it in the stand for now. I don't know specifically where this comes from, but a lot of people hear that they should get a temperature controlled soldering iron, which is very true. You should get a temperature controlled soldering iron. But what this is the part I don't understand. A lot of people hear that they should solder at very high temperatures, like 400 degrees Celsius. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand where that particular bit of advice comes from. I think people should be soldering at 300 or less, and I personally solder at about 290. But its specific temperatures are going to depend on what specifically you're soldering and how quickly you solder and what you're comfortable with. So if you're soldering like a big ground plane, which this board does not actually appear to have any, so this is not a good example. But if you're soldering like one of these extra thick traces on a bigger PCB, you know, you'll probably want to have to crank the temperature up to get a little bit more heat into the solder joint. But other than that, you can generally stick with a relatively low temperature. So let's go ahead and see what we got. Oh, and this did also come with a battery holder. I just had that off screen. So we get a ton of largely unlabeled components. Love it. But I think we can figure it out. So I am going to sort these. We have capacitors, more capacitors, resistors, capacitors, LEDs, LEDs. I don't know if that's a diode or a transistor. Probably a diode. There's a marking on it. J3Y. More resistors. And once the components get small enough, they aren't actually marked anymore. Pretty sure these are resistors, but there's probably more info in this. But resistors, I like the surface mount resistors as opposed to the through-hole ones because the markings are much easier to read, in my opinion. The first 2 or 3 characters, depending on how long it is, yeah, it might be a transistor, I don't know, sorry. Like I said, it's probably in the instructions. But resistors are marked pretty clearly what their values are, at least the surface mount ones. So the first 2 values or 3, depending on how long the code is the value itself. So this is 10, which means this is probably 1,000. And then the last number is always going to be the how many zeros you need to add to it. So 2. So 10, 2, 102 is going to be 1,000, I believe. Don't quote me on that. There are calculators you can look up online and plug that stuff in because I make very easy mistakes with stuff like that. I always assume, oh, It must be 1,000 even though it's actually 10,000 or something like that. So these instructions, obviously the text isn't going to be of too much help, but the diagrams are. You can sort of understand what's going on here. First, they tell you to add solder to the pad by tinning it. And there isn't English on the back. Add solder to the pad by tinning it. You get a little mound of solder there. Then you can put one side of the component down, solder it down, and then you can do the other side of the component, and then you have both sides soldered. That is exactly how I do my soldering. That's how I recommend doing surface mount soldering, and it is much easier than it looks, trust me. LEDs, you have the polarity marked here, which is good because we're going to be messing with some surface mount LEDs, and we have the polarity marked for diodes. The stripe on the diode indicates the negative. These LEDs aren't marked the way they say they are they? Oh, they are. Okay. So apparently there is a little green dot, which is going to indicate the negative on these. We have some diagrams for soldering down the multi-pin, multi-leg chips here. Tin one corner, solder the corner down, solder another corner down, solder the rest. Here is a diagram of the circuit in case something happens with the PCB and you need to make some repairs. This also has listed all of the component values for all of the components. Looks like that is listed down here too. This diagram is probably a little bit more helpful because it has the location on the PCB as well. And then on the bottom right here, we have a table of contents that is very not useful. Or a bill of materials, excuse me. And then, yeah, nothing on the back. So I am going to keep this just off screen because I will have to refer back to it as I solder down components, but it shouldn't be too bad. I'm thinking with this, I will probably start in the center and then work my way out. What we want to do, actually, it does not matter at all for this PCB with how spread out things are, but, and with how relatively small all of the components are. But on other PCBs, it might make more sense to start with the smallest components first and then do the big components, just because working around big components is more difficult than working around smaller components. But with this PCB, it doesn't matter. Everything's spread out more than enough that it should be fine. So real quick, let's talk about one more thing. So yeah, these components are definitely transistors because the markings on the PCB are Q3, Q4, Q2, and Q1. Q almost universally designates a transistor. D is going to designate a diode. Now that could be a regular diode or a light emitting diode or LED. And in this case, it looks like they're using D for LEDs as well. I usually use L, but D is still technically correct. R for resistor, C for capacitor. And then usually something like this would be designated J because that would be a connector, but that technically is not that important. All right, screw it, let's get into it. I guess I should start with the diode. I don't really like how this board indicates the polarity. Diodes only work in one direction. If you get them flipped around, it's not going to work at all. They're directional components. Same with electrolytic capacitors. These surface mount ceramic capacitors are not directional, so that's okay. But LEDs and diodes are directional. But this one just has a thicker line. I'm 90% sure that is just indicating ground. but we can probably check this, can't we? Yep. So on the diagram, we have a little plus that indicates the positive. That's on the right pad, and then on the actual PCB, the left pad is indicated with that thick line. So the thick line in this case is going to indicate the negative side. And that, again, that only matters for the diodes. Transistors should be pretty easy to figure out because they're not symmetrical. Oh, and then right here, we have a different marking. Oh, they're trying to mix things up on me. So on the diode on the diodes in the center here, we have this little triangle with an arrow or with a line at the top. Probably makes more sense if I hold it this way. We have this little triangle with the line. Jesus. That is also, like you can see on the diagram, they have it reversed again. It's hilarious. So yeah, the line indicates the negative pad again. Okay. This is going to be a lot of referring back and forth, and I apologize in advance. Oh, geez. So our 50 through 60. What? Why did they do this? I don't like how this is laid out at all. It's going to take me more time to decipher this than actually solder. All right, we'll do these four first, these top four. Those are 61 through 64. They are each 10K. So if we're going by the markings on the resistor, it should be 103, I think. Am I missing something? Because these are all 102. Oh, here we go. It's these ones. I always hate these things. Okay. Untangled. Okay. And I am going to do it exactly like they said, because that is my yeah, I mean, it is on the schematic itself, the component values. It's just the schematic and the PCB diagram aren't laid out the same. But anyway, I'm going to tin one pad each. Bring it in a little here. Bring that light in too, so we're not getting a glare. Then I'm going to take component with the tweezers, heat that pad again, slide the component in place, and then leave it. We're only going to do the one side for the moment. Does not have to be flat, but I'd recommend trying to make it flat, just to, I don't know, just for aesthetics, I guess. That's one side. Rotate the board. Then we do the other side. And that's it. We're halfway done. No, I'm kidding. But that's it. That's basically the whole thing. We just got to do that like 3 dozen more times. So next I can do, I should do R50, which is a 1K resistor. Shankmod says, what do you think of Voultar's soldering? Voultar? Voultar? Never heard of him. Or her. Alright, I totally got distracted. What was I doing? R50. 1K. I'm joking. If you look in the description, I literally already linked to Voultar's channel. Okay, 1K. Is that the right size? We have several different size components. That's bad. I guess they just cut you off a few different strips. Oh, hi, Happy Cloud. All right. Now, what are we going to do now? I guess I'll do these 3 components next. No, I'm memeing on Voultar because that's what he memed on me with first. What are we doing? C27 is a 0.01 microfarad capacitor. How many different capacitors did this kit come with? Comes with 3. Nice. Okay. See, this doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know what this is. So we have three different choices of capacitor, and none are labeled, but it looks like we have 2 bigger and then 1 smaller, and that's just the component size, not the actual value. Unfortunately, this is quite literally all in Chinese to me. I have C1 and C12. I can see that they're 0805 size, but the value is not there. Okay. And then there's also these capacitors, 13 through 26. It probably does not matter that much, especially because it looks like those are the exact same symbols. Oh, those are 0603. So yeah, it's probably, these two are probably the same value, which means this one is the one I want. So we want the short stack capacitors. Good Lord. Yeah, because we can see here C1 through C12 are all the same. They're 0805, which means it must be this one because this cutting only has 3. You know what? Maybe, Shank, you should learn Mandarin. And then 13 through 26 are all 0603, which is going to be these ones. And then last we have 27 and 28 are 0805 again, so that's the ones we want. Whew. Sorry, I can't read. That's my excuse for not responding to comments. I have genuinely been meaning to try learning another language, but I already barely have time enough as it is to do the stuff I want to do. All right. R48, R49. Excuse me. 48 is going to be a 10K resistor, but we'll do 49 first because 49 is in the middle. 49 is a 10 million resistor, which I'm guessing, if I can read that, that is 106, which means this is 10 million. Yeah, sorry. I saw that comment and I started processing it, and then I saw another comment that distracted me. I don't actually know what this board does, and it doesn't matter what it does because the point of the board is that it provides practice and experience soldering, not that it actually does something cool, because I guarantee you all it's going to do is blink lights. And then the last resistor, 48, was 10K, which is these. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with blinking lights. Just, you know, if you want it to do something... What? Oh, there it is. You know, like if you want to play music at you or blink lights for a specific reason, you know. Why am I doing this if I'm already good at soldering? Shank, you should have caught the beginning of the stream, buddy. Because, as I said, there's always more to learn when it comes to soldering. You can always get better. I guess we'll do this chip next. It appears to be a 555 timer, but I'm just guessing based off of the 3 5s there. I don't know. That could mean something completely different, but Any 555 marking on the chip. I don't know. I think that's a coincidence. I wouldn't trust that too much. Oh, let's talk about orientation, because this obviously fits in two different ways. On this chip in particular, if I can get that to focus, you can see there's this little dot on the bottom left here. That indicates pin 1. On the PCB itself, there's this little caret, this little arrow symbol. This is going to indicate that pin 1 goes on this side, and since we're not going to be soldering this upside down and then bending the pins down, because that would just be ridiculous, that must mean that this bottom left pad is pin 1, which means it goes like that, with the dot on the lower left. There are other PCBs that will indicate pin 1 by just having like a little bit longer of a mark on the silk screen, like, or even just a different mark. So you can see 3 corners of this chip have that little itty bitty angle on them, whereas that corner does not, which indicates that that is pin 1. It's different for every single board, and kind of frustrating, but once you get used to it, it's really not that bad. So we are going to start this one off again by tinning one of the pads here. And line it up, solder it down, and there we go. So I've only done one leg of this chip so far, and you can see it's not quite straight, but because I've only done one leg, I can kind of nudge it over and straighten it out. So I am going to solder down the opposite corner, and then I'm going to get that joint wet, tilt the chip so it's straight, and then let the joint solidify, and then I'll do the other legs. Sorry, I'm having a hard time getting the angle right with the camera. Ah, look at that. Nice. Alright. So what's happening here is something that a lot of people panic about, and it's actually real easy to fix. I know that Mr. Voultar has done tons and tons of clips on this, but the easiest way to fix this bridging, add a dab of flux, just hit it again, clean off the iron because there's plenty of solder, and just keep doing it, add more flux as needed, clean off the iron. People who are way better than me at soldering make this look much easier than I'm making it look. But that's it. We got that side done. Iron, just forget. This is one of the things I actually like about that K-tip. It can hold a lot more solder and actually clears bridges faster. At least I can clear bridges faster with it. Granted, if you're having trouble with something like this, it's not the end of the world. It takes a lot of practice to get that sort of thing clear, but that's another use for solder wick or even a solder sucker. Either of these would have cleared that out too. Just wanted to show that there is a way to do it without that. And there we go. Easy peasy. So next I will do C28, which I believe is that capacitor right here. Yep. And I believe this also comes with some extra parts in case you accidentally squeeze one of these bad boys too hard with the tweezers and just send it flying, which of course now I can't do on command, but if you've ever tried doing surface mount parts, chances are pretty good you've sent one flying with tweezers before. It's actually more of a danger with the small parts. Yeah. The resistor space program, it's unintentional, but you know, it never fails to get a part into orbit. What were we doing? We were doing D1. Oh, and I should mention, on the site that you can purchase one of these kits on, there are also pictures of an assembled board if you're confused about what component might go where. So you can see D1 is supposed to be an LED. The color does not matter too much, but these are different colors. Of course, they're not marked. Let's see if we can't figure it out. So D2 through 11 means there should be 10 diodes, so it's not that. D12 through 15, those are actual diodes, I think, not the light emitting kind. Where the hell's D1? Oh dear. Oh. It says D2 here, but it says D1 here, so one of these is a typo. So D1 is probably the pack from the larger cutoff. Good night, Mr. Happy Cloud. Sweet dreams. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this pin or pad tinned, and pay attention here because the right pad has that extra line on it, which means that right pad is the negative. And I always get this confused, but it's okay because the top is marked. So some LEDs have a little arrow pointing towards the negative pad, and if you flip this over and let the camera focus, come on, there we go, you can confirm that because that's the side that has the green dots. So we actually need to flip this around. My tweezers are a little bit sticky because they still have flux on them from another thing I was working on. Also have to be careful soldering LEDs because they are sensitive to heat. So if you spend too long soldering them, you can kill them. Oh, it keeps moving. There we go. But you can always, it's not like, you know, you can only spend half a second soldering them. Just don't want to spend too long. So let's take a look at what I just did with this LED here. So I don't know how well that's coming out on the camera, especially since it's not staying focused, but that right pad looks far from ideal. So what happened there is I have a nasty looking pad. Now, as far as an electrical connection is concerned with this particular solder joint, it looks perfectly fine. It's going to work fine. There's going to be zero issues, assuming there's no other issues with the board. But that particular joint should be perfectly fine. However, it is indicative of an improper joint, so it is something that I will be fixing, because even though I can tell in this particular joint that there's no problem, you can't always tell that there's no problem. So there are two different ways we can fix this. The first way is we can just heat it up and feed more solder in, because the rosin core of my flux, rosin here, does it say on here somewhere? No, it doesn't. It says no clean, but you'll have to take my word for it. There's a rosin core in this solder, as there is in most solder, and the rosin serves as flux for your soldering. Or I can just feed in more flux like that, and then tap the joint with my iron instead of wasting more solder. And then if we look at it again, you can see it is nice and round, and it is a happy joint. That is what flux does for you, and if you're not using flux, you're going to have a bad time. That's plain and simple. Okay. What was I doing? I got distracted again. I guess now we should do these 4 diodes. So that is 12 through 15, which I'm already certain is these because I'm looking at a picture of what the board is, but we will check here anyway. Now see, that says D1 through 15. That's not D1 through 15. That should be D12. This is not a very good instruction. But I know it is these 4 because, like I said, there's a picture of an assembled board. And the assembled board does appear to work, so I'm just going to dump all of these out. And again, we talked about this earlier, but there is a little arrow with a line on it. The line is indicating the negative side. Just like the strip on the diode itself. Try not to launch this thing because it is round and not square. You can see there is a little black line on one side. That is the negative. Now, it does not matter, particularly if it's not straight, as long as it's not like shorting on the next one over. But you should always take a certain amount of pride in your work. and if it looks bad, you should redo it properly. Flip that over. Do the other side. Then I'm going to redo these first sides again because they look kind of nasty. And ta-da! It's all four. One of them's a little bit crooked, but we can fix that. Again, another one of the pros of the K-tip is that it's much easier to get both sides of this thing at the same time. There we go. But that particular method takes a little bit more practice. And now let's do this big chip. I have no idea what specifically it does, but it's a TI 201 BXBL something. I don't know, CD4017BM. But same thing, there is a dot in the lower left-hand corner that indicates pin 1, and then on the PCB there's that caret symbol again. It's the same as last time. So I am going to tin this corner this time. Slide that in there. I'm going to do this corner. Straighten it out. Alright. Now we can do the pins. And of course, if you don't want to risk shorts, you can do each pin individually, assuming you have a small enough tip to do so. But it is not always quicker. All right, so let's deal with this bridge by way of the wick. So I'm going to spool a little bit of wick out. And then just try soaking it up, just like that. And that's it. And you can save it till next time, or just cut off the used wick now. Babjianti. So now I'm going to just continue making my way out, and I am going to start with the diode here. D5, I believe we already looked up and was part of this. So I am going to, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 diodes. I'm going to dump a bunch out and I'll count it later. Counting's too difficult. Alright, so normally I'd like to start with the other pad, but I'll start with this one first because I already got solder on it. Again, pay mind to the dot indicator on the LED and the PCB. Ooh, that was nasty. Moved it around way too much. I will fix those later though. I'm gonna just do all of them real quick. D11. Did I miscount? I did, but it doesn't matter. I didn't pour out enough diodes anyway. We need 1, 2, 3 more. Again, I think through-hole soldering is actually quite a bit easier than... I'm sorry, surface mount soldering is quite a bit easier than through-hole soldering. With through-hole soldering, you got to keep flipping the board over every single time you do a component, and unless you have an actual like through-hole soldering jig like Bigclive does, he's shown that a few times on his channel, unless you have one of those, it is very tedious to do. Granted, if you're only doing like a few parts, or yeah, it's not too bad. But if you're doing a whole board like this as through hole, which is completely possible, all of these parts are available in through hole except for maybe this one. I don't know what this one does to say if it's available in through hole, but there's probably an equivalent if not. Alright, so I've got one side soldered for every single one. Now I just need to go and do the other side. Can I show how to use solder paste, please? I will probably get to that eventually. That's definitely not a thing for this video. But I don't, believe it or not, I don't actually use solder paste. So if and when I do a video or a stream on that, it'll be a learning experience for all of us. I have yet to do a board that using solder paste would be beneficial on, so though I have just started getting into boards that I could actually feasibly do with solder paste. Alright, and then I'm going to go once again around on the inside of the pins and clean those up because some of them are particularly nasty. Most of them are particularly nasty. There we go. All right, what do we have next? I need to do 50, R51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, and 60. Try not to knock my flux over. So those are all going to be 1K. Which means they're all going to be these ones. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We'll just dump out 9 for now. Because I don't know how to count. I wouldn't want to give you guys the wrong impression. Ugh. Soldering stand broke again. Okay, anyway. More of the same. I meant to mention this at the beginning of the stream, but I totally forgot. If you're following along and you notice that I am doing things backwards from how you might want to do them, it's because I'm left-handed. So I have my soldering iron on my left in my left hand, because that is easier for me. You can do it however the hell you want. Though statistically speaking, I believe most people are right-handed, so you probably want to hold it with your right hand. There is an argument to be made to soldering backwards if you need that manual precision for the tweezers. All right, we need 1, 2 more. Oh, that is 2. Okay. soldering stand. That is part of my soldering stand that just fell off, not part of my soldering iron. Just a little loop, goes like that, and insulates it from the metal, but I didn't actually need to put that away. Okay. I didn't quite mention this either. I did go over this during the last stream, and I kind of figured this would be a sequel to that stream. But you also only ever want to feed solder into the joint itself. You're not transferring solder from the iron into the joint. You're heating the joint with the iron and then transferring solder directly into the joint. Though that being said, a big old blob of solder hanging off your soldering iron can sometimes help you transfer heat into the joint to transfer more solder to it. But that is the point of practice, so you can get a feel for those sort of things. Boom. Look at that. We're almost done. Next, we just need to do some more diodes around the corners, some transistors, and that should be it. These extra rows right here, these 3 columns on this side and these 3 columns on this side, they aren't part of the circuit. So the actual circuit itself is just this part. These do have traces connected to them, but they're just for additional practice for 0603, 0603, 0402, 0805, 0805, 1206 components. So you can see you got the bigger ones on the left, smaller, same size as previous, smaller yet again, and then the smallest. So we just need to do these 4 corners, and then we can try it out. It'll be great. Be a barrel of laughs. Oh yeah. Actually, I'm not even going to check that, because I know exactly what these 4 components are. We'll do those first. Ooh, it's a good thing we have extras. I'm kidding, I actually saw where that went. But that is exactly why it comes with extras. So I'm going to start with these 2. By tinning the top pad. Both of these. I'm going to take it with the tweezers, like that. And then we're going to just treat it like a big resistor. Flip it over. All right, I kind of messed these ones up, but I think we're going to be okay. Yeah. I didn't get them quite centered. You can see this one's off quite a bit, but I was able to get solder on all 3 pads, and I did the exact same thing with this one. So we're going to be okay. Had I decided that I needed to redo this, the easiest way to remove this without hot air is a buck huge solder ball. Just like that. And let's try it again. You can do that with pretty much any component, and most of them will survive. There are heat-sensitive components like connectors and LEDs that you can't do that with, so get them right the first time or bring extras. There we go. Tried to launch this one into orbit. Luckily we had a failure to launch. And there we go. We just have 8 components left. Stay. Damn it. I'm gonna have to fix that after the stream. Okay. What are we doing? Let's look at R68 and D19. I'm sure all of these are going to be the same thing. The diodes are going to be these. I don't actually have to look that up. Just based on the components that I have left, because these are the only diodes I have left. And R68. Let's find that. It's not on here. Why wouldn't it be on here? It's over here. It shows 1K. Why doesn't it show over here? Okay, well, fine. 1K. Wait a second. Here's 2 of them. I'll use these 2 up. Would have been more realistic if I soldered with the cone tip. Alright, fine. We'll solder with the cone tip. Even though I hate the cone tip, we'll solder with it. I'll finish off with the cone tip. Ideally, you wait for your soldering iron to cool down. Put that over there. Cone tip. Might have to wait for that to cool down just so I can pick the Jesus thing up. Wouldn't want to give anyone the wrong idea. This is just for demonstration purposes. I don't actually use one of these horrific things. Keep that on my silicone mat because it's still got plenty of heat. Ooh, almost launched one. Where's that resistor? Oh, it's right here. Okay. Okay. And just like that. See, it does work. I don't think my argument was never that it doesn't work, just that it's not the ideal tip. We need 2 more resistors. What did I say they were? 1K? Yeah. $102. I mean, you're probably not wrong, HDR. So HDR says resistor readings are just suggestions anyway. And I mean, they kind of are. Most circuits will work with approximately the same resistance. Like if I were to use 1200 instead of 1000, probably just fine, especially for something like this. Granted, if you're talking about resistor elements in a voltage divider, like for a power supply circuit, no, that is not a suggestion. That is a hard requirement. You will have a bad time if you try and use a different value. Alright, you'll have to forgive me for not responding to comments that aren't in English. I don't actually speak any other language, so sorry. I do respond to comments that aren't in English on my videos because I use Google Translate, but that's all I got. Alright. Alright, we are pretty much done. So before I solder on the battery, I need to do one more thing. And I'm going to have to get up to do it because I forgot to prepare for the video, like usual. Give me just a moment. Alright, so despite the fact that it says no clean on the solder and on the flux, you still need to clean the flux. The difference between no clean flux and flux that doesn't say no clean is that no clean is just a lot easier to clean. And the way to clean that is take some isopropyl alcohol and a soft bristle brush, like, for example, an old toothbrush. And there you go. And because I should have pointed this out beforehand, and now it's kind of too late to point that out, there was a lot of flux left over on this bottom chip here, this one, where I used the solder braid. That was a different kind of flux. And that is probably something that should have been cleaned up. The reason we want to clean up flux, one, most importantly, I think, is because it's sticky, and I don't like getting sticky stuff on my fingies. No, because it is corrosive, and leaving it on a circuit board can cause damage long term. Also, some fluxes, not all of them, in fact most are not, but some fluxes are also conductive and can cause issues when testing a circuit. Like I said, most aren't, but you don't want to find out that your flux is the conductive flux by accident. Alright, get one of these bad boys. And these wires do not come pre-tinned, so what we need to do is take them. I'm going to have to either get my helping hands or just Bigclive my way through this, but we need to add solder to them to tin them. And I am not having a good time. There we go. So, Patrick Foltz, want to get in this hobby? What are some basics I should learn before picking up an iron or a kit? Honestly, Patrick, you learn by doing when it comes to soldering. So, some basics, I would recommend looking into a few tutorials for soldering. I check out the last stream that I did. It's linked in the description. It's basically a how to get started soldering. I like to think of it as a how to get started soldering. There are also plenty of other videos. You're on YouTube. You're on one of the best resources in the world for learning how to solder. But just get a decent iron, get a soldering kit, and go to town. When it comes to soldering, you learn by doing. Alright, red is positive, black is negative. that's it. We're all done. Let's get some baterías and try it out. Of course I don't have... I only have 2 batteries at my desk. So I need to go grab batteries again. I'll be right back. Plenty of batteries. They're just in the charger. Ta-da! We have a small problem, but that's okay. So that's all it's supposed to do, as far as I can tell. But let's analyze what's going on here. This LED isn't lighting up at all. I don't know why. Could be bad, could be a problem with my soldering. Looks like all of these LEDs are good. This one seems to be blinking twice as much as the rest. I don't know if that's... Both of these are, actually. I don't know if that's intentional. But this should probably be blinking. So let's do some troubleshooting. Get my lights back. So here is where the multimeter comes in handy. I'm going to put it in beep mode, so beeps when I touch those together. Sorry, this is not the multimeter I thought it was. My other multimeter, diode check mode and continuity mode are the same thing. This multimeter, I guess, doesn't have a diode check mode. Or let's double check. Yeah, this multimeter doesn't have a diode check mode. Oh, no! Let me get one that does. So, got the shitty old meter here, but works still enough. Plug it in here. Or it would work if the batteries weren't dead. That is unfortunate. Oh, I'm just dumb and got used to my old meter. There's an on-off switch. Anyway, does the same thing. Beeps. But if we touch the probes, you can see in diode check mode, it lights up a diode. So this one, you can see, is lighting up, which means there's potentially a problem with this transistor or whatever this transistor is connected to. Or it could be a problem with my soldering of this resistor, but I don't think that's the case because if I put my multimeter in frame here, we can see that there's 1,000 ohms of resistance between the resistor, which is exactly what it's supposed to be. So my money is on the transistor. But let's see here. Ultimately, though, it really doesn't matter that much. Because like I said, the point of this board is to get soldering practice, not that it just blinks, you know? But if we trace the circuit from here, see it's supposed to connect to there, go into that, there's a diode there, go from here, probably to one of these things, or it's on the timer. I bet it's on here though. Or that's why it's not working, because the connection's broken. Oh no, it goes all the way down and around and back up. That's bizarre. Why would it go like that? It doesn't. I think I'm reading that wrong, but that's okay, because we have a schematic right here. There's no need to reverse engineer anything. Yeah, see, Hazi, I'm a step ahead of you, bud. So our problem is with Q4, which is right here. We see one of the pins goes to the ground, another pin goes to R64. Oh yeah. We have the LED and R68 on the top from voltage in, and then R64 is right here. We measured that, and then there's these 4 diodes go to pin 12 of whatever the hell this is. So let's check that. If that is pin 1, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I think it's 9, 10, 11, and 12. Yep. And that goes to that. I have no idea why it's not working. Metal loss. Iron says it's at temperature, but I don't quite believe it. There it goes. Oh, come on. Now, I think one of my problems is that I'm using this dreaded tip right now. I need to move these components because I keep resting my hand on them. They keep sticking to my hand and they keep bothering me. Now it's lighting up, but now it's also not blinking. Now what did I do? That's bizarre. Let's keep going. I swear, RGRS, if you start that rumor, I'll start a rumor too. I wouldn't want to be known as one of those people who uses the code tip. One of those people. Yeah, it's so bizarre, man. There's a short somewhere. I don't even know how to respond to that. I'm leaving because I don't understand anything. I don't know how to help you, Mr. Hugson. Or Mrs. I don't know. It's not my current problem, but that is definitely a problem. There's a short on these diodes now. Though it did just occur to me that my problem could be that I have the wrong capacitor on something. All the joints look good though. I don't know. It was working, and then I started messing with it. Now it's not. Now it's working even less. Oh, there it goes. Maybe I'm just not being patient. I still don't have this, though. Just start shorting stuff out. That'll get it blinking. It's not the appropriate way to diagnose that, but or to fix it for that matter. Oh, I made it even worse. Now this one doesn't turn off. Let's make sure it's nice and clean. Clean up my flux. With a little flux. Oh, and I don't have any paper towels or napkins or anything. It's doing something different now. I don't know what it's supposed to do, so I don't know. Maybe it's actually working properly now. Aside from that one still not lighting up, I'm pretty sure that one's supposed to flash, and I'm pretty sure that one's supposed to turn off. Oh, it did just occur to me that this transistor could be bad. Like it's not like bad components don't ever happen. Let's swap it out and see what happens. It's probably not that, but I don't know what else to try. That's within my ability to do so. Nope, wasn't it? Yeah, I have no idea. That's unfortunate when things don't go the way they should. I will say, I'm fairly experienced at soldering. I am very confident that the issue is not with my soldering. The only possible issue that I can foresee is that I mixed a component up somewhere. But otherwise, I don't know. Not so sure about that. Or wow, that's interesting. How does that happen? I've never seen that before. C27 is my problem. So now it doesn't, now it's just paused. Let's figure out what C27 was. There's a 0.01 microfarad capacitor, which is this one right here. I've never seen a capacitor do that. When I applied pressure to the capacitor, the circuit started working. I mean, okay, that's not true. When I applied pressure to the board in the capacitor area, the circuit started working. God, I hate this tip. It might not be the capacitor, it's probably the PCB. But I can swap out the capacitor a lot easier than I can swap out the PCB. Oh, it might just be that my finger on the capacitor is changing the capacitance. Not that it was necessarily applying pressure. That is so bizarre. Anyway. That's... I'm at a loss. I don't know. My fourth LED still is not working. All my connections look good. I think it's just down to this chip not doing something that it's supposed to be doing. You know, it is probably because I'm using a cone tip. You're 100% right. Only sadists use cone tips. This is also why most people have like 2 soldering irons, because there is a different use for different tips, and waiting for the soldering iron to cool down is not something that a lot of people have patience for. Yeah, I don't know. Everything seems to work individually. The only way to troubleshoot this at this point is to start swapping components. Like, I know this circuit works. So I do have 4 irons. Shh. All right? I only have 1 iron at my desk. No, that's not true. I have 3 irons at my desk. But I only have one soldering iron stand, so that is inconvenient for me. But I just want to show off my K-tip now. I like the K-tip. The K-tip is nice. Because you can just slam that in there, get all of these pins. Nice and soldered down. All that surface area. See, all the flux on that capacitor. That's what it was. That's what it was. Clean it one more time. The whole back of this thing is wet because I kind of spilled. Gotta wait for it to dry. D15. Where's D15? Oh yeah, that thing. Yeah, now it's lit up. I think I've ruined it. Okay, I guess we just don't need that light. Burns a hole in my floor. Wonder if it's the diode then. We bypass the diode. Let it stop. Yeah, it's so bizarre. I don't get it. Yeah, I'm not really sure what purpose this diode serves. I guess it's like reverse polarity protection. Because without it, that last LED works fine. Let's solder it one more time. Oops. That wasn't what I wanted. I swear that usually works. Where is my multimeter? I thought the point of diode check is that it beeps when I check a diode. But only one of them beeps. Oh, this one is not passing any current whatsoever. So yeah, the problem is my diode. So let me show you how I determine that. With my cheap-ass multimeter in diode check mode, which is that little arrow with the line, when I touch the red probe to the positive side and the black probe to the negative side, you see that the display does not change. If I do this one, you see it beeps and it goes 0. If I swap the probes, ooh, it's still beeping. That diode might be bad too. Just the opposite failure mode. Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty sure these two are doing what it's supposed to do, and that they're showing whatever they're showing, but it's showing something. Whereas this one that's not working is showing nothing, and the one that is working is showing open circuit both ways. So I think I have two bad diodes, but only one of them is failing in a way that is noticeable. We're going to desolder that and see if we can't just give a big old bridge. That's fine. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm at a loss. It didn't come with extra diodes, so I can't just plug another one in and test it, but there you go. And yeah, I'm glad I only planned to do one of these soldering kits because I don't want to be here for another 3 hours trying to get that other one working too. But anyway. Oh man, it disconnected me. I don't know where it disconnected me. But like I was saying, I think I'm gonna call it for the evening. I'm not gonna bother trying to solder that other kit. Not tonight anyway. But yeah, the specs are listed on the instruction sheet. So it is replaceable. It's just a 4148 diode. If we look at, where is it? Where is it? There it is. So if you search the number IN4148, you will find the diode, just a surface mount. I don't know what package that is, but it really doesn't matter that much. I'm pretty sure it's just reverse polarity protection. So as long as we put all the batteries in the correct way, there should be no problems. But yeah, you were right, Ozzy. It was that diode. I didn't even think to check the diode. And I think this one's bad too, but since it's closed circuit, we'll just leave it. Bad diodes seem to be common these days. I don't know why. It's kind of frustrating. Yeah, that's a good point. It could just be in there for surface mount practice, because these diodes are round, whereas everything else was a square package. So yeah, I don't think it's important in terms of the actual circuit working. Just like the rest of these columns are just there for practice. And I personally don't need the practice, so I'm not going to sit here for another 3 hours getting them all soldered in. At least not on this stream. The stream's already long enough. Anyway, did I miss any chat? I wasn't paying nearly as much attention as I should have been. I suppose I can answer a question preemptively, though. This is the multimeter that I'm using right now. It's a Unity UT123. Good multimeter, just doesn't have quite all the features that I want. It does not have a diode check mode, unfortunately. Or if it does, I have no idea how to use it. And something else it's missing. Oh yeah, it doesn't have any current detection. Like, I can't measure milliamps with it, but I knew that going in. But it does do voltage. It does do continuity and ohms. It even does temperature. And non-contact voltage. Doesn't work for that. Oh well. Works for like mains and shit. It's pretty neat. Isaac, I never miss you. You are hard to miss. I'm sorry, I that probably came out wrong. Or that didn't probably come out wrong. That did come out wrong. You know what I mean, though. Shut up, baby. I love you. You know it. Anyway, I guess that's all I got for the evening. I think I shall call it a night. I'll go stare at these blinking lights and do whatever the hell it is I do these days. There's links in the description to kits, some of the tools I used, links to store to buy some tools, links to some other channels, some other soldering resources. Good stuff. These batteries, by the way, these are really cool. I'm gonna talk about them because I like them and they're cool. These are constant voltage batteries. So instead of, if you don't know how batteries work, they have a voltage curve. in that the full charge voltage and the end charge voltage are different. But these are constant voltage, which means that for the whole life of the battery, they're putting out 1.5 volts, which means for something like a modified Game Boy that has a particularly high current drain, these are a godsend. Unfortunately, that means things like low battery detection, for example, on a Game Boy, don't exactly work as intended. You get about 5 minutes worth of warning on these that your batteries are about to die, but I mean, look at how bright those LEDs are. They're not going to get any darker until these things are completely depleted. It's great. Oh, and I guess eventually I'll do a stream where we talk about soldering something like this, but that's going to be a while yet, and I think I personally need more practice soldering stuff like that anyway. That's what that footprint looks like, if it'll stay focused. It's easy enough, but it does require hot air to do right. Anyway, thanks for watching. Keep on being awesome, etc., etc.